Shalom. Welcome, everyone.
Great to be here. Thanks for joining us. We're so excited you're tuning in.
Totally. We've been looking forward to this all week, this little get-together that gets us ready for Shabbat, sharing insights with you. So thanks for hopping on.
And thank you, our listeners, for sticking with us, taking a few minutes to listen, respond, and be part of this behind the scenes. So, what's in store for this week? What are we diving into?
Once again, we're in the middle of Moshe's speech, his grand address that stretches across the entire book of Devarim.
Right?
And we keep noticing how Moshe, just before the people enter the land, lays out the foundations for how a nation should live in its land. He's guiding them to integrate holiness with practical living. Mitzvot that connect us to Hashem's word, but also require down-to-earth action.
So are we going to focus on one of those practical mitzvot today?
We sure are. One of the key examples of a harmonious life that blends Chol and Kodesh, the everyday and the sacred, is, yes, right from this week's parsha, Parashat Re'eh, the mitzvah of Ma'aser Sheni, the second tithe. The commandment is to bring it to Jerusalem and eat it there.
The second tithe. So we're talking about carrying 10% of your crops from the field, whether that's up north or down south, and you bring it to Jerusalem. You're connecting divine providence with human labor. There's a beautiful integration here because you have to eat the Ma'aser in Jerusalem. Whether it's shawarma, watermelon, soda, or even apple pie, it all becomes part of the experience. You spend time in the holy city, you absorb the Jerusalem atmosphere, and believe me, there's always a big crowd.
That's for sure. You get to join in the city's #1 activity, Torah learning. And no less meaningful, each individual with their own tithe joins together with the collective. Everyone gathers in Jerusalem's courtyards. So that's my point. There's a connection between individual and community, between each Jew and Hashem.
Wow, that's such a great addition. Spot on.
But before we go deeper into the idea behind Ma'aser Sheni, let me take us back to the very beginning of the parsha. You'll see how the theme of connection shows up right away, and maybe we'll find even more layers. Ready to go there?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Take us there.
Thanks. So here's the thing. Up until now, Moshe's been recounting how the people's journey through the desert were led with divine miracles, pillars of fire and cloud, man from heaven, water from the rock, clothes and shoes that never wore out. But now, the opening word of this parsha, Re'eh, shifts the focus to life in the land, where free choice comes into play. Moshe says, "See, I place before you today a blessing and a curse." He's preparing us to choose between Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal. When we speak of free will, the use of the word see, re'eh, and lifanechem, before you, aren't just poetic, they're central. It's about perception, attention, awareness.
That's intriguing. Go on.
Our seeing, our vision, how we choose to look at things is a form of free will. We can focus on what's good and beautiful, adopt an optimistic outlook, and let that shape our world. And not only our eyes, but our face, panim, our expression and presence, also reflect choice. We can shine blessing, light, kindness, courage, or Hashem forbid, bitterness, anger, resentment.
Beautiful. Simply wonderful. So Moshe is showing us how to shift from divine dependency to human responsibility. We now get to decide how we show up in the world, individually and as a nation.
And that's why this all happens right before entering the land. Because Eretz Yisrael is, on the one hand, a place constantly under Hashem's watchful care, a land that Hashem looks after constantly. Eretz Asher Tamid Enei Hashem Elokecha Ba. But on the other hand, his attention can also feel overwhelming. Hamabit la'aretz vatir'ad. He looks at the land and it trembles. When we're unsure of our direction, that divine presence can feel intense, even unsettling. But it's still his presence. And the power to interpret what we see, to decide which mountain we choose to face, that choice is in our hands.
That's deep.
And you know what? It ties back to the second tithe. Ma'aser Sheni is all about those layers of connection you just described. Some of them even seem contradictory.
So let's return to that. Our parsha says, Aser te'aser et kol tevuat zar'echa, hayotze hasadeh shana shana. You shall surely tithe all the produce of your seed that the field brings forth year by year. And you shall eat before Hashem your God in the place he chooses to make his name dwell, the tithe of your grain, wine, oil, and the firstborn of your cattle and sheep, so that you may learn to fear Hashem your God always. This unique mitzvah anchors us to the centrality of the place Hashem chooses, Jerusalem, the holy city.
Exactly. And sorry if I'm repeating a bit, but the act of bringing Ma'aser to Jerusalem reflects the new reality of life in the land, a harmonious blend of the sacred and the practical. But let me ask, this mitzvah comes with a set of conditions. Under certain circumstances, a person is exempt from bringing the physical produce to Jerusalem.
Want to read the pasuk?
Great idea. Here it is. V'chi yirbeh mimcha haderech, if the way be too long for you, meaning maybe the journey is too tough or exhausting. And another condition, ki lo tuchal se'eto, you cannot carry it. Perhaps it might spoil or be too heavy. Then, once again, if the place that Hashem has chosen is too far to travel reasonably, and the last condition, for Hashem your God has blessed you. Rashi explains that your crop is so abundant that carrying it all is just not feasible. All of these conditions exempt you from bringing the physical produce to Jerusalem.
Beautifully laid out. So in these cases, what do? You convert the tithe to money, bring the money to Jerusalem, and buy food there to eat in joy before Hashem.
And that leads to my question, do each of these conditions stand alone, or do they need to occur together? In other words, is just one of them enough to allow redeeming the tithe for money, or do they all have to apply?
That's a good question, but maybe the question itself could be flipped. Either way, you're going to Jerusalem to celebrate before Hashem. Whether you're carrying grain or cash, the point is the same. The centrality of Jerusalem remains. So does it really matter which form it takes?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know whether the conditions are cumulative or independent.
So let's leave that question open and ask a new one. You with me? Here goes. When the Torah presents one way to fulfill a mitzvah and then adds an alternative path, that teaches us something.
Maybe it's like Pesach Sheni, a primary option and a fallback one. Ideally, you bring the produce itself to Jerusalem, but in certain situations, money is also acceptable.
But look what you're saying. If both options are legitimate, then maybe it's not a case of lechatchila versus b'diavad at all. There's even a whole tractate, Masechet Ma'aser Sheni, that discusses redeeming the tithe with money. If the Torah gives us two valid paths to fulfill a mitzvah, can we really say one is the real way and the other just a workaround?
True. And let's be honest, it's a lot easier to wire some money through Paybox or PayPal than to lug crates of produce, sacks of fruit across the country up to Jerusalem. But I have to say, those questions you just asked, they can stay open for now. Because the thing that grabbed me was that idea. The Torah gives us more than one way to fulfill the mitzvah. That's what's powerful.
That's where I was headed. When the Torah gives us another way, it's placing an asterisk by the mitzvah. It's turning the question toward us. Sure, the essence of Ma'aser Sheni is Jerusalem, but a key part of it is us, our role, our choice.
You took the words right out of my mouth. It's about how we connect to Hamakom. And Hamakom, not just the physical place Hashem chooses, but Hamakom Baruch Hu, the one who gave us the harvest, who made the field yield its blessing.
So here's the depth. If we choose to overcome the distance, the burden, the weight, if we make the effort to bring the actual produce, we're rejoicing in the work of our own hands and recognizing that Hashem was with us through every step.
When you bring the fruit that you planted, watched grow, and picked, there's a powerful sense of partnership with Hashem. That awareness builds through the process and peaks when you finally arrive in Jerusalem and rejoice.
And that choice, by the way, answers your earlier question. If you choose to bring the produce, it shows that all the conditions listed come together as a set, making the other option a more limited route. But let's flip the coin.
Yeah, there's another side.
The Torah also gives us a legitimate alternative. Maybe you arrive in Jerusalem with a suitcase, a toothbrush, and a credit card, and that's enough. The Torah acknowledges human limits. It says, if it's too far, too heavy, too much, it's okay. Hashem understands. You can still rejoice in Jerusalem even if you didn't schlep your crops there.
That's so beautiful. Torah often challenges us to push ourselves, but sometimes it gently says, it's okay. I know your limits. And when it does, that's not a compromise. Maybe it's compassion.
Right. Ma'aser Sheni is a mitzvah of connections. The Torah lets us choose how to connect, offering a model of effort, flexibility, and joy in the place Hashem chooses.
Let's wrap it up. This parsha is all about seeing, choosing, connecting, and the key is not credit cards or cash.
Nope. The key is to see, re'eh, that Hashem is with us in every path we choose. To see that it wasn't just our own strength that produced all that abundance, but that Hashem was with us throughout. And even when the effort is hard, Hashem helps us through it.
Beautiful summary. Let's leave room for our listeners to add their own insights.
Yes, thank you for listening. We'd love to hear from you. Comment below or send us a message. Your choice.
Your choice. We're looking forward. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, and see you in Jerusalem.
See you in Jerusalem. Just don't say Lashana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim. I hope to see you next week.